Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the NFT Morning Show, Friday, November 17th. Big day on the show today. Today, we are going to discuss the overnight ordinals pump on the Bitcoin side. We're then going to be joined by the one and only EllioTrades, big-time crypto YouTuber, friend of the show, friend of ours in general, to discuss all things big picture. He's been through this before. He's an experienced crypto guy, so can't wait to hear what he thinks about macro, NFTs, and crypto. Nick looking good. Got that corduroy jacket looking sharp. Friday morning vibes, Nick. How you doing, buddy?
I'm feeling fresh. I'm feeling pretty good. Just looking at my some opportunities to buy Solana here. Seeing it pull back.
Dogecoin.
AVAX.
Everyone, shout out your favorite token.
Yeah. Just say a random ass crypto token.
What are you guys buying? Anyone on ETH?
I had somebody.
That's
DM
so
me
last year, dude.
Someone DM me. They go, "Hey, remember I told you about KAS? KAS? Did you end up buying any? It's running." I was basically just like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like what? Like KAS? Excuse me." I just don't think
that was
I'm
a
there.
sauna play for kicks. Was Caspa. The sauna guy gave him that. Yeah, the sauna guy gave him that at like 0.03, 0.04. It's like it's clean 5-6x.
Oh wow.
Absurd.
Okay.
In all fairness, Solana is looking mighty tasty here.
It always is.
Okay. Well, you're speaking like it's Bitcoin or something like that. You're gonna buy it at 1,000?
I don't know about buying at 1,000, amigo.
Well, then it's not always. So then you just disproved your own self. How do you feel about punching yourself in the face, Pia?
I'll tell you, I'm feeling pretty lousy about it right now. I don't know how I'm going to be able to continue.
Well, the bottom line is it's looking interesting. You know, I'm very excited about that. I was also just thinking about how I've been missing out on the staking component, despite us having discussed it, and that's like so freaking critical. Is it? Well,
Did you get 9% a year just for letting it sit there?
Yeah, and then the bridge gets hacked and you lose all your money.
There's no bridge. It's the validator pays you it because Solana's still inflationary.
The validator gets hacked and all your money goes away.
That's how they power the network. It's literally built into Solana's infrastructure. There's no hack. There's no smart contract risk. None of it.
Proof of stake is a scam.
Okay, we can have that conversation for sure. For sure. I'm down. But it's not like yes, liquid staking is smart contract risk, but Solana's still inflationary. So like that's the big thing is like you're just yielding the inflationary supply right now.
The crypto guys are coming out of the woodwork. They're just like they're putting their glasses on with the tape in the middle of the, between the lenses, just being like, you don't understand. And it's just like, all right, take it easy, guys. Anyway, that does sound pretty criminal. Sounds pretty critical.
Yo, that sounds criminal.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, quick shout out before we kick things off to our partners over at SHRAPNEL. Our giveaway of 2 SHRAPNEL operators, which are currently worth 0.16 Ethereum each, is going to be ending in 2 hours. So if you own a SHRAPNEL extraction pack, make sure to comment a screenshot in the pinned tweet that you see at the top of this Twitter Spaces stage to enter. If you haven't bought one yet, go to thenifty.com/shrapnel, enter the promo code NIFTY for a 30% discount. These packs will give you a guaranteed early access to their game next month, weekly drops, and more. Think of these packs as a Fortnite battle pass, but on steroids. Think about it like that. This is juiced up. Again, in 2 hours, we're going to be picking the winners. So enter while you still can. Don't worry if you don't win. We have some more fun activations and giveaways coming up that we're super excited for. Again, this is a Fortnite battle pass, but as if it's stuck a steroid-filled needle in its butt, it's on the sauce. It's like Barry Bonds in 2002. That's what we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen. Signal, let's cook right into the weather report. Let's rock.
Let's rock. I bought one, by the way. I bought one of these shrapnel packs. I don't know who I'm becoming. I have Solana. I have AVAX now. I don't have any gaming equipment, but I know someone who has gaming equipment. So I'm going to go see them and talk to them about some headshots so I can play shrapnel. I don't know what's going on, people, but you're slowly converting me into like a beginner gamer. So I'm excited to play because I now have the heavy equipment. But anyway, on to the weather report.
So you're now a pro gamer. You didn't realize that that's what you get when you spend a few dollars. Boom, you're now elevated to pro. Signal. Congratulations.
Hey man, if you're gonna go big, you go big. No point going in with the guy with a little pistol. You gotta bring a bazooka to the shrapnel party. So I'm looking forward to the game, guys. But Friday, it's November the 17th. It is, well, I think we're about 40 days from Christmas. So let's see how that market is looking. You got market volume at 14.5 million. So we are coming downwards. You got Blur at 9.3. We're about 3 days, I think, off the Blur airdrop. OpenSea at 3.4 and Solana at 3.2 million, slightly down as well. On the market leaders, not too much movement. We got Apes and Mutants, they're down about 2%. Captains down about 5%. Pudgies up another 4% to 5.8. They're one of the big movers. And other movers include Mockaverse, that's up. On-Chain Monkeys, double figures, that's up. Gremlins, they're down 12%. Miladies, they're down as well to about 2.2. The big stories of the past 24 hours were, firstly, you got the crypto prices. They have seen a dump, obviously led by Solana. It kind of had to cool off, didn't it? It's down about 8%, ETH down 4%, and Bitcoin down 2%. The only token that's in the green is Dogecoin. Pio talked about this yesterday. That is up 5% in the last 24 hours, with both OSF and Bodogo Greenies saying a breakout could be imminent. On to more Solana. The price dip opened up an opportunity for another Mad Lad surge as a collection ran over 100 SOL before pulling back off the news that the holders would have the opportunity to receive a max allocation of the Pith token. We talked about this airdrop yesterday. All you had to do was stake 5 SOL for 24 hours before November the 20th deadline. Non-holders are also able to participate if they KYC. However, for anyone who's American or is in the United States, this has opened up concerns as US holders are not able to participate and could be prevented from other drops in the future. And going forward, some old school collections saw a resurgence in the last couple of days. The first one is NeoTokyo Citizens. That collection is up 80% in the last week to a 12th East floor. The second, much lower cap, and it's the pixelated collection Aliens. That collection made waves in August 2022, has now done a 3x to 0.07 this week as it pumped from various sweeps. And then lastly, the big winner of the day was an Ordinals collection, Bitcoin Frogs. It surged 50% to 0.12 BTC floor, so over $4,300. According to Crypto Slam, the collection has recorded 1.9 million in secondary volume in the last 24 hours, which makes it the most traded NFT out of all the chains. So eat that ETH, eat that Solana, eat that AVAX. The Bitcoin Frogs are here to stay as Ordinals continue to hold their increase in volume in the last couple of weeks. That is all for me. It is back to you guys in the studio.
Fantastic weather report as usual. Signal some other updates from the Nifty Daily Digest. That's the daily digest that gets posted to X platform every day. It's also available on the nifty.com if you prefer to receive it via email. NeoTokyo citizens are up 80% in the last week to a 12 ETH floor following a surge in sales. Very, very interesting stuff there. All Moonbirds nesting rewards will be unlocked regardless of nesting stage on December 1st with a reward claim to end December 31st. So very interesting stuff there. ETH Boy sold for 200 Ethereum. That is by a lot of money. And Trevor Jones. So if you're not familiar with these two artists, on Nifty Gateway, both of these artists were pretty notable. At the time, Trevor Jones was significantly more notable. A lot of money, unfortunately, passed away at some point in the past couple of years after a bunch of his work had been minted. Huge sale right here. Looks like it is the #2 secondary art sale in months, only behind Sam Spratt, friend of the show's Monument Game. Very, very, very impressive sale right there. Rest in peace to a lot of money. And shout out to Trevor Jones, friend of the show. Really nice guy. After initially postponing their drop, Dot Swoosh's, what is it? Tenaj? What is it? How do you say this?
This is not a JPEG, Tenaj.
Okay. Got it. This shirt will go. Okay, Tina J. This shirt's going to go live on November 29th, featuring a $55 price tag. It's receiving backlash for the price. I mean, I just think that, like, unless Nike literally injects you with liquidity, like literally, like just injects you with money so it reflects in your bank account, they're going to get like dumped on by the NFT market. At the same time, I think it's interesting that they just like were in marketing meetings and they're like, we're going to drop this t-shirt. And that's going to be like a huge move. I don't know. Anyway, those are your updates from the Nifty Daily Digest. And now I want to greet and introduce our very, very special guest for today's show, friend of the show, legend, the host of the EllioTrades YouTube channel, the founder of Imposters, among several other very notable crypto projects and collections. We got EllioTrades here, baby. How's it going, Elliot?
What's going on, guys? How's my audio coming in here? I'm in a super secret backup studio. That's actually not a studio at all. So I hope it comes in all right.
I mean, no surprise. It sounds great. You're a pro, even
like
when you're
really
mobile.
good. Yeah, I'm like, wow. Okay, well, this is actually surprisingly great, all things considered.
There
Amazing.
you go.
How you doing, gents? And Sig?
We're doing great. Great to see you, man. What a great time to have you back. I mean, if you remember, maybe like 8-9 months ago, we were trying to do a little daily show or something like that. And I just remember the market being in the gutter at that whole time. And, you know, you were having guys like Darius Dale on your show, and everybody was like, look, we're just not out of the woods yet. It's going to take more time. It's going to take more time. Are we out of the woods now, Elliot?
I mean, like I started buying stuff just I don't know. I think at the beginning of the year I started buying stuff just because I couldn't do just like full bearish mode. My curiosity was stronger than fear, or whatever the saying is. And then when I saw the news of the bailouts in March, and you started to see that, and then you saw the Fed's response, to me that was like and I don't know if I'm did I break up here, guys?
We can still hear you. We can still hear you.
Okay, cool. I'll just keep talking. When I started seeing the Fed's response was going to be just, you know, print like in mega clips, I was like, okay, cool. Like maybe this is probably not as bad as people are going to say it is, and that we're probably going to get, you know, a better outcome here. And then you just started to see, like, if you were to like distance yourself from the macro doomer stuff, which I got definitely into, and I think was interesting to learn about. You know, everything about crypto is very much so looking healthy, right? And you could say, okay, like all of this stuff that has not, you know, anything to do with crypto, those are, you know, kind of scaring everyone away. And you know, one of the things that I always have in my head is every time there is a major crash, there's a reason to think this time is different. China banning Bitcoin, you know, the regulators in the United States coming in. In this case, it was macro, and it was interest rates. There's always been a this time is different. And, you know, I felt like when I took a step back at a certain level, I was like, okay, this was our this time is different. And I looked at, and everyone is hoarding cash. Everyone's jumping into T-bills. And then you start to see the markets, you know, grinding up. You see the Fed injecting liquidity, but the fear is really there. And something in my gut just said, you know what, this feels like it's going to really turn and flip bullish. And so I started calling myself on the YouTube channel Bull Market EllioTrades several months ago. And so according to me, yeah, it's been different. We're back on, and I've been buying since about, you know, my first like meaningful buy was about 19K. And then when we crashed from 32 down to 25, I started really pushing in more meaningful buys. I still have some stables that I was planning to keep. I didn't expect us to rocket like this into the 30s. But yeah, I mean, it's I'm pretty well allocated. Obviously, if we crash to zero now, you know, egg on my face, and you know, there's always time to adjust the strategy. But at the same time, no, I mean, I'm pretty excited, and I think things feel pretty good. I think that the risk of being on the sidelines right now, to me, is more than the risk of being in. And that's where I've been at for a while now.
Well, we have a lot to talk about. I want to see if anybody else has questions, but I have a follow-up. You've been through 2 cycles at least at this point, if I'm not mistaken. You've seen this movie before. Is the ETF news, is that causing us to start a bit earlier than traditionally we would start from a Bitcoin halving 4-year cycle perspective?
I think that, you know, it was funny. I was having this thought today that the ETF news, I think, is being used to describe something that's already happening, and that smart money knows is happening. which is that, after, if you look at all the metrics, post FTX collapse, that was obvious capitulation. And then everything after that really just kind of shows that, strong hands are, accumulating, and Bitcoin leaving exchanges, and yeah, liquidity was drying up, but that's to be expected, right? You have low price action and no catalyst. But then what happens is when you have like razor thin books, all of the market makers leave, and there's no supply. It just takes a small catalyst, and you see what happens. And that's the story of every bear market, but with different reasons as to why things happen. And so I think when you really just take a little step back, you could say, you know what, I'm sort of in the camp of, I do believe the Bitcoin ETF is a big deal, but I also think that it's being used to describe what's happening a little more than it might actually be the cause right now. I think there just might be a ton of demand for crypto, a ton of people who know more about this industry than they did 4 years ago, and a ton of people that know that the halving historically creates this change. We have election years coming up. We know that interest rates can't stay at their current levels. Like, everyone's a macro expert. We know that the government can't refinance their debt at whatever, 6 points. It needs to come down for them to refinance, and half the government debt or half the US national debt rolls out over next year. Like, there are factors at play here that mean that we'll have probably some really good times for risk assets and just for all things. And I think the people got scared out. I think it'll just be another run of people having missed it personally for not having the instinct to get in while it was still uncomfortable,
or to hold through the bear market and just focus on accumulation. One thing that really surprised me is it feels like as soon as we even had a whiff of we're so back in the crypto markets, NFT people just were like, all right, we're aping into NFTs right now. Like, I didn't expect that. I didn't think NFT volume would come back so quick as soon as it feels like the second NFT people had an excuse to deploy millions of dollars into the NFT market, they jumped on it. I would have thought there might be some lag, some delay. Did that surprise you at all? I mean, this is, I guess, the start of the second NFT cycle. So I don't know if I'm just thinking about it as like a kind of newbie to this, but I don't know. What do you make of the kind of the action that we're seeing with NFTs?
Yeah, I think there's certainly something there. My real belief, though, is that I don't really feel like the NFT cycle has resumed. I feel like it's lagging tremendously, and that it makes sense, right? It was the longest holdout, and it was the latest, and it was also the newest. And so there's more sort of skeletons and emotional skeletons there. And I think that the crypto markets will lead for quite a while. And if you look at the kind of history of NFT volumes, they do, to me, they are within the pond of crypto. And if you look at like the spikes on ETH all-time high prices, and then you look at the spikes on NFT volumes, you see that, as ETH comes off of new highs, that's when NFTs really rocket. And I think that it'll be no different, right? When we see ETH really make a move, and obviously you see Solana and its explosive move, and of course then its ecosystem is having a lot of volume. Why? Because the underlying has exploded and people feel wealthy within the underlying. And so there's going to be no different within ETH. It's going to be, obviously there are a lot of different types of projects, but I think that quote unquote NFT culture that is really, JPEG driven and not necessarily like having a different thesis or a different sort of utility that might, just be leveraging the NFT for the project. I think that those will hit the rage factor later. I think that you'll want to see some really healthy moves out of ETH, which to me, it's not there yet. But I am excited, right? To me, it's everything's going according to plan, maybe a little sooner than I had appreciated or expected. But yeah, I mean, everything that I hope is going to come back next cycle has shown extremely strong signs. And yeah, no, my conviction, I feel like is stronger than ever.
And we definitely have to talk about gaming. That's certainly one of your specialties, but you just brought up Solana, and we're all pretty damn big on Solana on this show. Obviously, we have a project on Solana. We all hold Solana. What do you make of like this bounce back from Solana? I've been saying that this is a correction because it was treated as like Sam Bankman-Fried's shitcoin when FTX collapsed last year. Are you surprised at Solana's rally? And do you feel that the kind of repricing is now kind of fair value compared to like the pricing of Bitcoin and some of these other coins?
No, not at all. I mean, so if you play the crypto game, you know that it's a momentum game, and it's a narrative game, and it's an enthusiasm game. And it really has very little to do with people like to make a lot of deals out of the market caps and try to translate it as if like, oh, how many potatoes could you buy with all the Solana market cap? It's the silliest thing I've ever heard. It's about, are there more buyers than sellers at any given moment and at any given price point? And Solana was an obvious play. I was actually talking to Easy about it, and I didn't hit the smash buy on $8, but I was buying all through the teens and 20s, and I forgot when we were talking about it, but it was so obvious.
$13.40 was when you were like, give me your thesis on Sol, and I outlined like the 6 major points, and you were like, all right, perfect, thanks.
Yeah, no, I wanted the deeper, I wanted to know like the DeFis and like I was asking you more like differentiation between ETH and the sort of new technologies as well, because I wanted to do deeper dive coverage. And I was like, oh, let me ask, Easy. He's obviously going to shortcut my my research here. And so with Sol, it was so obvious for many reasons, but one of my favorite reasons that you can only really get, unfortunately, after a bit of experience in this industry is it's a hated rally. It was the most obvious hated rally, and it's one of those things where I've seen a lot of coins where everyone wants to cancel the coin and say, for this reason or that reason, it's not crypto enough, it's not this enough, we don't like the founder, we don't like that. But it's got a rock hard community, and the community is super passionate, and it was very obvious that next in line as far as upside from Ethereum, with the almost guarantee that it's going to rocket back at least to some degree of all-time highs, if not some multiples over. I mean, it was obvious it was Solana. So I actually had been buying pretty aggressively, and I put it months ago in what I called a safe portfolio, or passive portfolio, where I had essentially Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, and Coinbase stock. And that was what I said. Hey, look, if you guys just want to set it and forget it, and like you don't care to play the game for max returns here, but you just want to actually crush it, just buy these 4 assets and call it a day. And that was several months ago.
So, well, I'm curious what the 4 are. I'm assuming it's the same that we're all.
You just said them. You just said them.
Oh,
Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, Coinbase.
Oh, well, then it's the exact same. Except Coinbase was not the one. Well, I actually am pretty heavily exposed to Coinbase because we were buying it all through that dip, where it was just like, this is ridiculous, like how low this is. It just seems so wildly mispriced. I've been tossed out Disney the other day, which is completely unrelated, but I'm feeling good about that Disney position. It's totally unrelated. The question I was going to have is, do you participate in Solana staking?
Yeah, I do. However, I had a pretty sizable wallet that I kept trying to stake, and then I just got bored because Phantom wasn't letting me stake. So maybe I'll let you guys give me a little tutorial here. But I've just been moving really quickly this bull run, and I've been super busy. And obviously, one of the topics that I'm sure you guys will want to get to is some of the stuff we're working on NeoTokyo and Superverse, etc. But no, I did kind of want to talk to you guys about the different strategies to sort of leverage the Solana play, because I know that ecosystem is going to be full of airdrop opportunities, staking opportunities, and the like. To me, it does feel a little bit like that ETH cycle last time. Is hopefully that would be the optimistic view, right?
And on the airdrop side, Easy and I were talking about that from the Mad Lads point of view, which is what. Like someone in our Discord, I discussed Mad Lads. I haven't written a whole post about it, but the thesis is pretty simple. It's like they're building what appears to be potentially one of the most compelling crypto exchanges, just fundamentally from the fact that it's transparent, that it's custodial, and that you get to hold on to your assets.
Non-custodial.
We keep going back and forth on that. So
custodial means that they custody it. Non-custodial.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're the one custodying it. That's all that I know. So that's my understanding. It depends on who's saying
Nick
it.
Nick rejects your categorization.
No.
It's a pretty easy thing to understand. The custodial exchange owns your assets. A non-custodial exchange means you own your assets.
There you go.
But I know what Nick's talking about, because Nick's
Yes.
kind of like, well, what if I'm talking about it the other way? I get it. I get what Nick's saying. But anyway, go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
So
You're the only one, but it's cool.
So the thing now I'm just completely thrown off by that. The
Mad Lads,
Backpack,
they're
right?
building
Mad
the
Lads
exchange
and
backpack.
So Easy was talking about this. So you can't be in the US and get it, but then I was like, well, I'll have my dad do it, who's in Belgium, where he can actually do it, and then I'll get airdrops through him, basically. And our family.
I'm picturing your dad with his fanny pack trying to like connect a wallet to this thing in Belgium. Like, what are you talking about?
I could help him with that process. The bottom line though is like that seems like one of the most obvious plays. And the thing I was going to say is that someone in our Discord, who I actually respect and is a great trader, and it seems like she did sell the recent top of Mad Lads, but I was like, I don't want to move in and out of these things. Mad Lads just has a simple thesis, which is you're going to participate in what could potentially be one of the largest crypto exchanges. Like you're entering it on the ground floor, and they're incentivizing and all of the Mad Lads holders is part of that, and saying, hey, our community are the catalysts that are going to drive our products to success. I'd had a call with Armani before I even knew that this exchange was happening, and he presented that thesis. And then I think he's like stated that multiple times publicly, which like the thesis is we're going to leverage our community as catalysts to grow. And so, for example, the upcoming airdrop on Monday, what is it, Easy?
Jupiter?
I don't know if it was Jupiter.
Pith network. It is a chain. It's an oracle basically for on-chain dexes.
So there's an airdrop that you get for just having a Mad Lad and going through the process on Backpack. So I think that like that seems like one of the most obvious airdrop positions. Are there other ones, Easy, that you think are like a good approach to
for Mad Lads or just in general?
Just in general. Well, I like the Mad Lads one because it gives me a centralized way to go and actually potentially get access.
There's still a lot, to be honest. So there's another on-chain DEX called Drift Protocol that's getting a ton of volume right now, and they've teased a token. So that's a big one. It's basically like just using these platforms has a lot of opportunities. Soul Blaze was my big one back actually when me and Elio first talked. They had not started doing their Soul Blaze rewards, and I was like, this is liquid staking, much like a Lido. You also have Margin Fi, which is lending collateral, which has potential for it too. And then, of course, Jupiter's only giving 10% of their airdrop on this first one. No date yet, but they have 30% more of their airdrop coming out, which a lot of people are already speculating will be driven by perpetual volume and more things because Jupiter perpetuals are brand new. So that's the big thing is like in their labs, providing liquidity to their perps and using their perps seems to be the most clear ones. Those are just some of the big names. There's going to be a bunch of other smaller ones that start to pop up, but liquid staking right now seems very clear. And then, of course, the leverage trading on DEXs.
I didn't realize that perpetual is just a smart word for leverage trading. Like
that's literally what it is. Yeah.
I had no idea last time.
Well, to be fair, it's more generic leverage trading, but like the way perps are the chosen the poison of choice and in crypto.
Yeah, it's not addictive gambling. Don't worry, you don't have a problem. You just trade perps. You know that you're a perp trader.
Perp trader, perpetrator.
Wow.
Nice thing. Oh, wow. Elliot. So I'm glad we got a little rundown on some airdrops and, Signal Easy, Nick, any questions you have for Elliot, the floor is yours. But I wanted to ask on the gaming side. So, obviously we're partnered with Shrapnel right now. We've been talking about them. Kix is all in on gaming. Kix has been talking about Prime Token. He's been talking about Ronin Network of all things, which is hilarious because if you think back to last cycle, obviously Axie Infinity was one of the biggest things, but then had this wild kind of fall from grace a little bit. The Ronin Bridge got hacked for $400 to $600 million, something crazy. But it seems like there's a little bit of a bounce back. How are you looking at the gaming sector? You build in the gaming sector, so you probably know it very, very well. And do you think that the tokens that come with these games are going to have similar runs to like our big 4 or 5 crypto assets? I'd love to know the way you're thinking about gaming and how risky it is compared to like traditional crypto.
Yeah. So I did a video about 2-3 weeks ago, and I laid out my thesis on gaming. I went sort of 4 sectors, which is that you have infrastructure projects. I sort of put a spotlight on several of those, including Merit Circle, which just became Beam, Immutable X, which I'm a seed investor in. I hold positions in all these tokens, by the way, just to be clear. There's a project called Ready Games, which is coming out, which is a new project, and I'm also an investor in that. They're also coming and interacting with the NeoTokyo Launchpad as well. And then there's also Gala, which I don't hold a position in, but one of the things that I analyzed was that their inflation problem that they suffered from had been resolved. I actually need to update that, which is the reality is that they actually haven't, in my opinion, fully solved that because they burned all their community. They burned their their team tokens, which was 21 billion Gala. And so my understanding was that it reduced the overall supply to only 2 billion Gala more than exist right now. Actually, though, that doesn't remove them forever. That just means that they get to remint them to node operators. So the Gala thesis to me is needs to be looked at again. So you have infrastructure, that's one bucket. That's the simple, stupid way to sort of allocate, because you're essentially betting on many projects. The big issue with gaming is that it's hits driven. So you don't know which gaming project is going to actually become a hit. And that would be the biggest risk with gaming. That's also the biggest reward, right? Is if you end up getting involved with a project that does end up reaching mass adoption and getting, games tend to be home to millions, tens of millions, hundreds of million users if they do reach scale at the multiplayer gaming industry. That is a huge opportunity. It's going to be the biggest opportunity in the sort of modern internet age, in my opinion. It's a circular digital economy perfectly suited for what blockchain does. However, we just don't know which one it's going to be. So that's where the opportunity is, right? And when it's going to happen is always obviously what people are so interested in. And what I like to think of is whenever it does happen, you're going to have such a saturation of attention with a very small, relatively small amount of active projects. And so it's going to be extremely, extremely good time to be a gaming project whenever someone does have a hit. I've put out a thesis, what I call the positive sum game, that is gaming, which is that every project should really be rooting for every other project. And this is something that I've been doing a lot of work to fix, which is that there's a lot of tribalism within crypto, but also within gaming within crypto. And if we only took a step back and realized that regardless of whichever game cracks the cookie and ends up attracting a mass audience, they have now blazed a trail and broken down stigmas for a mainstream audience that are going to create a massive wave of new interest, new users, and insane amount of investment in the space. And once again, what is crypto? How do prices reflect in crypto? Well, it's how many buyers versus sellers are there? And at that point, I believe there will be a lot more buyers versus sellers, and that any active game that's showing signs that it could do well is going to benefit tremendously. So once again, picking the right game is going to be hard. Picking infrastructure that eventually houses games is going to be much easier. Your risk to reward is going to be lower. I think it's going to be easy to pick a infrastructure project that does, 10x plus. I think that picking the right game is going to be very hard, but those are like 100x plus opportunities, right? And then when you talk about launchpads, those are going to absolutely crush, right? Because once we get into the heat of the market, and we get back to more of a silly mode, which is going to happen, right? I don't care what anybody says, it's going to happen. More liquidity, lots of people hungry for gains, new projects launching with low float. Launchpads effectively get priority access, help with marketing, and those tokens are going to fly, right? So launchpads I'm fully allocated to because they're dirt cheap right now. There's no hype. So I'll just get in, and once it's hot again, I don't want to DCA into those. I just want to have my Launchpad allocation. So I have those allocations ready. Those are the only things I'm 100% allocated towards. And those I brought up. I already talked about this. There's a video with 150,000 views, so I'm not breaking anything right here. But Cetify and NeoTokyo, right? And NeoTokyo and Cetify have different sort of fundamental theses, but in general, they will be sort of access, networking, and the ability to potentially get into projects before they launch, which is going to be amazing down the line, not right now as much. And then of course you have different types of NFTs, and there's sort of different ways to interact with those. But in the end, I did a pretty deep dive. Every project that I did talk about, is potentially a lucky video. Maybe I ignited a flame under people within the crypto gaming sector. But effectively, everything has performed astronomically from this video. So yeah, it's done great. Very happy for the community, and in the end, just happy to see the thing that I'm working on, which I've been building. I've been building towards this moment for years now. Becker and I specifically with NeoTokyo have been preparing for this for several years now. I've been preparing with my team over at Superverse and Imposters, and we're ready for this next phase, and we're excited. And people have not seen really even a fraction of what we have yet to roll out. So it's exciting times.
Cool. One thing, just to reinforce your statement that you were saying about sort of avoiding the tribalism and supporting others. I've been just thinking about that from an entrepreneurial standpoint. It's actually your safest approach, yet potentially highest, still high upside or equivalent upside, is actually just waiting and seeing what people build that works. Because which also means you should be rooting for everyone who's taking all this risk on the front lines, because they're taking an immense amount of capital and a bunch of personal risk, like reputational risk associated with that. executional risk, there's market risk. There's so many things that they're exposed to. And from that standpoint, we should be rooting for all those people to have the most success possible. Because if they can crack the nut on specifically what, where consumer adoption comes from with any of these products, then we all can learn from that and end up like there's an entire, I forget what you can call the genre of Fortnite, but there's a bunch of other games that exist in that same genre, and they weren't the first, and they're not the last, and there were plenty of other people who ended up succeeding in that space. Same thing with social networks, same thing with search engines, same things with pretty much every other tech, same thing with blockchains. I think the exact same, like to just sit back and observe and support is frankly the best way, which is also why it's a pretty exciting space to be in, because you can essentially buy tokens of some of these projects and participate in some of the potential upside associated with that, including the games that you're mentioning, Elio. I like the way that you're phrasing the risk reward associated with that. And it's like, but I should at least well, it depends on what your portfolio size, but I'm thinking like I put $1,000 on each one of those different things and potentially get 100x. That's 100 grand that ends up in my wallet if one of those things ends up succeeding. So I can go make that bet, call it 20 times or something like that, but then also put 100 grand into the infrastructure side of things. And that's obviously that's like my 10x direction associated with. So anyways, these are all, the bottom line is supporting the whole ecosystem is definitely the way to go. Good luck changing that in the whole gaming space though, as a whole, which is like hating on NFTs. But it's crazy to see the fact that tribalism exists within a community that's so freaking tiny, where we're all like, really ultimately, I want any NFT project to just fucking crush it, like at this point. And so when we go look at Bored Ape fail, or what, like with certain things, or we see other projects fail while they're trying, we really should just be congratulating them on failing, at any scale for us to observe, because we all get to learn from that.
Oh, absolutely. And, I know Signal has a question for Elliot, so I'll throw it to her in just a moment. And we have to hear a bit about Elliot. I want to understand the level of preparation for this moment, because I know you've been building your stuff for literal years and basically waiting and just doing your best to not be too early on this stuff, which is absolutely a thing. Nick?
Yeah, and I also want to ask about the Launchpad thing as a whole as well. You mentioned Seedify, and then it sounds like
NeoTokyo has one as well, which is I want to dive into that because that's where I'm really interested. Like, I have pretty good gaming exposure to games I think that will gain traction. It has been more of a shotgun approach, but the infrastructure is the one thing I definitely want to dive more into.
Absolutely. And just 1 second, ladies and gentlemen, just want to remind everyone that we're giving away 2 Shrapnel operators worth 0.16 ETH each. This is, of course, in partnership with Shrapnel. If you own an extraction pack, comment with a screenshot on the pinned tweet to enter. It's the nifty.com/Shrapnel. Enter promo code Nifty for a 30% discount. This is one of our gaming partners. So yeah, Signal, what question did you have for Elliot?
Yeah, and I wanted to ask, you mentioned about like specific games being able to sort of crack the cookie. Do you think it will be games that will end up being listed in the large gaming stores that we've seen now, for example, with Prime? With Parallel? Or do you think it's going to be games that really tread their own path and don't necessarily align with established gaming ecosystems?
Yeah, so I mean, was your question more about being in the Epic Game Store, or in general? Was that the direction of your overall question?
Yeah, because like I remember the last cycle, we saw certain events which at the time seemed very big. So, for example, you'd see a project which was aligned with gaming, say they would have bought a huge amount of land in Sandbox and Decentraland. And at that time, it was a big deal. And you would see prices just spike across NFT floors or related to the tokens. Now, this cycle, it's completely different. And it seems to be games which are partnering with large established partners like Epic are the ones which are really gaining momentum. So my question is, do you think it will be those types of partnerships which will propel the Web3 games forward, or do you think these games are indie enough to still capture the attention, but without having to partner with these huge brands like Epic and Fortnite?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the things that I've always been very vocal, but also, I don't want to, hamper anyone's expectations. The problem we want to solve right now is distribution. The problem that we don't need to solve right now is distribution. Those problems have been solved by Steam and Epic Games. There is absolutely no reason for, in my opinion, us to worry about distribution through a native Web3 platform when there are platforms with so many active users that we really just need users, right? We need more people playing the games. That is problem one. Obviously, there were some technical problems, getting layer 2s and other stuff, lower fees for minting NFTs. These are types of things that are problems. Onboarding directly to crypto, but a lot of games will accept, fiat currency, and there's not really a big issue here, right? Like most of these games understand that they'll have a seamless Web2 experience, that they will sort of work to push people towards Web3 in their own ways. Some are more natively Web3, like Parallel, than others, but there's a spectrum of that. In the end, I think that we really need to focus on content, and we need to focus on, obviously there are infrastructure layers, but those are, I don't think, the big issues right now. I think the big issues are users. And attracting users is going to be a massive, massive win, a W, as they'd say in the DeGods world. And what I've said all of the time is wherever the users go, the money goes. And we've seen that with, now apes. Rumors are that the apes will have their own chain soon. I've been saying ape chain is going to happen since the beginning. And any ecosystem with enough users can choose to create their own chain, because what is a chain except for a community of users? And obviously there's some technicals, but those are less severe in 2023 and 2024. So my belief is that Epic Games is the best option for us once Steam opens up to Web3 games. I believe it'll happen. Eventually, those distribution platforms will be absolutely where you want to be. So no question. Creating your own launcher and stuff is cool. But I think that shouldn't be the first priority of these games. There's definitely some infrastructure plays, but when I say that, I'm more talking about like, layer 2s like IMX or ZK EVMs and like Ready Games is an interesting one that I talked about, where they've been able to onboard a bunch of games and sort of help them with compliance in the App Store and stuff like that. Those are the types of plays that really just solve problems and headaches for developers and help them just get their games into users' hands.
Your statement on distribution resonates very deeply with me, because that's literally the conversation we were having at a coffee yesterday. I'm not going to name the person we were meeting with, but basically he was like spitballing ideas with us, and he said, "Hey,"
his name is Vitalik, but
okay, yeah. So basically, what he was saying is, like, do you guys think that you could provide a solution or do you think some of these Web3 publishing solutions can help you? And I'm like, well, I don't have a publishing problem. I have a distribution problem. It's not really a problem. It's just like our goal is, how do you reach more people? So if someone comes to me with a new technology, it doesn't matter unless it has a bunch of people who it's going to accelerate the pace at which I can grow audience. And there's really two places right now that we're primarily focused. One is Twitter or X, although now that it's anti-Semitic, who knows? But and then YouTube being the other channel, which is like, they solved the distribution problem. Like I don't have an issue in terms of getting a message that's compelling out there. And I think the same thing, to your point, goes with games and apps. Spot on. That, like, despite how much we hate app stores and all of the pain that comes with it, the pain is suffered by like 1% of the people that are in the app store. That said, everyone deals with the issue of how long it takes to get approved to go in a lot of these app stores. I don't know what the Epic Games Store process is. I think that's a more open app store than Apple's, which is kind of the statement that kind of the position that they've had in the market, which is why I think you're probably right about that being the best option. But it just feels good hearing that, like, we don't have a distribution problem. We just have, that's not the problem to solve. It's really about the quality of the content and getting people in there, which is quality of the games is another way of saying that. Like that's the biggest challenge, is like, did you make a good game? And really, Jonah, who comes on here pure sometimes, but tweets a lot about the gaming space, he's always like, basically 99% of these games suck. Like that's just like the problem that exists. Not to like, everyone tries hard, but that's also the same case in the gaming space, period. Whether or not it's in Web3 or not, most games are not great. And there's few and far between. So anyways.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Elliot,
it's a
oh, good.
hits-driven business. I mean, in the end, the hits-driven business is going to have a higher risk if you're going to go to an individual title level. But you know, I do think that there's, if you apply full Web 2 logic to the space, like unfortunately you're going to miss out on a lot, right? Because that's not the space we're in, and there is a ton of ways to win within Web 3, even if the games don't hit, you know, a Fortnite level of success. You know, that's an unrealistic bar. And so I think understanding like what Web 2 gaming success looks like, but also understanding what Web 3 gaming success, which will have its own unique characteristics, that's really important, right? Because a lot of people really want to just put this in a Web 2 box over and over and over again. And if that was really the case, that someone was going to come into Web 3 as a Web 2 sort of native and just crush it, show me one example, right? So there's a lot of people who are obsessed with Web 2 gaming news. They consume Dexerto all day, and they think that they're like the smartest people in Web 3. And I really think that there is going to be an unfortunate and pretty rude awakening for those people when they see a lot of projects have mega success that looks quite different maybe than some of the Web 2 counterparts. And look, I think that, you know, my sort of skill set is, you know, firmly in Web 3. I love gaming, and I'm obsessed with that culture and that world. And I think that blending the two is going to be the way to sort of really maximize your returns here in this market.
Well, it's exciting stuff. I definitely want to hear about this Launchpad approach that you're taking. It sounds like your bags are packed there. Obviously, you're building in that direction too with some of your action, Nick.
Well, and associated with that, what a Launchpad really means, because my understanding of it clearly was, I think was misguided. It sounds like, and I just looked up Seedify after you mentioned it as an example, and it sounds like by me just signing up there and potentially staking some of their tokens, that inherently gives me access to airdrops of early access of other projects that come out during the cycle.
Yeah, so Seedify has a tokenized model, and I don't know if you guys can hear me or not, but yeah, Seedify has a tokenized model, and when things get hot and they start really ripping, essentially those tokens go way up in price, and then, you know, depending on how many tokens you have, is sort of, there's usually really small pools of tokens that get allocated to Launchpads, and so and if it's a really hyped project and a hyped point in the market, you know, it's pretty easy. Those have historically performed extremely well. Now, NeoTokyo, actually, we don't, the founders, Alex and I, didn't create this Launchpad. You know, the entire thesis of NeoTokyo, I came to Alex in Q3 of 2021. I said, look, this is going, I pilled him on gaming earlier that year and was like, dude, this is going to be the biggest thing. We ended up hitting it off, just a couple of YouTubers. And we ended up, I was like, dude, I had this idea, you know, and I'd seen Bored Apes, and I was there in the early days with the clubhouses and the ape noises. And I'd seen lots of projects rise and fall, and I realized that it had nothing to do, the project success had very little to do with the art or the thing or the t-shirts or anything, like all of the things that, you know, with respect, a lot of the NFT community glorified. I was very clear, it was clear to me it had nothing to do with the performance of the project. What mattered for a project to succeed was who was holding it. And if you identify the right people holding the project and people who really believed in the mission and the vision of the project, then the project had a huge opportunity. And so we devised a project that was a free mint that was insanely difficult to get into. In fact, we created this whitelist mania that everyone really sort of copied for the next few months, and it kind of ruined the NFT space thereafter. So I truly apologize for that. But we created just like a miserably horrible treasure hunt across the internet to identify like really passionate people, and we ended up with the most insanely passionate community. The stats on S1 minters who never sold, even though the floor price at one point was super high. I don't like to talk about prices for a lot of reasons. But, you know, one of the things that what we, you know, kept saying to the community was, you know, it's time to build. From day one, we said it's time to build, you know, and the mantra was, ask not what NeoTokyo can do for you, but what you can do for NeoTokyo. And we've had over 100 different community or citizen-led projects, as we call them. And we have a pretty complex ecosystem that's driven by this sort of bytes ecosystem called Incentivized Build. Effectively, the whole thing is about creating a decentralized community of builders. And then, you know, the goal was to attract the best executives, builders, networkers, VCs in the entire space. We have VCs like Bitcraft, Animoca, people from them in NeoTokyo. We have so many founders from gaming projects across the space, and we have a ton of games that have sort of, and gaming projects, other projects that have been built and launched from within those walls. And one of them is a Launchpad. And the Launchpad is a great one because it is something that is super synergistic to the concept of exclusivity and access, and the kind of shadowy nature of NeoTokyo. And, as you can imagine, Alex and I are pretty much the sort of people that all these projects come to when they come into the space, and they say, hey, we want you to be our advisor, or whatever it might be. And so, the amount of access and visibility that, Alex and I have is probably on par with about anybody. And so we're able to, sort of sift through and bring that citizen. That's actually technically a different project, right? It's called Citizen Capital. And we're able to bring Citizen Capital amazing opportunities that come to us, right? And so that's how that works. And that's why it's kind of distinctly different than Cetify, who's an amazing project as well. It does really cool stuff, but they have a very different funnel and a very different process. And so that's what Citizen Capital and NeoTokyo look like. That's definitely a super exciting aspect. There's just in general a lot of prongs of NeoTokyo that to me make it interesting. And it was always a strongly citizen-driven, mission-driven initiative to be the group that's helping pull strings, get access, and be a part of creating the future crypto gaming industry.
Well, and I see Alex Becker actually commented on the Twitter Spaces here, so that's always fun. He sold a business for like $100 million in the past couple of years, if I remember, and now he's doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and like Muay Thai 24/7, which has been fun to watch. Is he singularly focused on NeoTokyo and like his YouTube at this point?
And would he go on a date with Pio?
Alex is a brilliant entrepreneur, definitely someone who I've learned a lot from, and is a fantastic entrepreneur. I would say that he's always up to a lot, and that's why he's so regimented and so focused on time management. He has a lot of really exciting things. Yes, he did sell his business for over $100 million. And he's extremely invested in the future of NeoTokyo and what we're doing here, because from the first moment when we talked about it, we both knew what was going to happen, and we both also had the foresight that things will be nasty and terrible during the bear markets, as they are, because when numbers go down, everything's bad, and when numbers go up, everything's good. But that's something that we can't control, and so we just focused on the mission and focused on creating something that we thought would serve a purpose here in this industry. And that's what we've done, is put our heads down and focus on creating what we see as valuable.
I'm wondering, Easy, if you have any other Launchpad questions,
Yeah.
but I'm sitting here thinking, I miss you, man. Dude, I remember the show we had.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we used to do a show with Elliot like 4 days a week for like a month. We were like working together a lot. It was a great time, but that was during the bear market. It kind of sucked. The time that the market was, it was still a great conversation.
I think Elliot
No, it was great. I miss you guys too. I gave you guys a big hug when I saw you guys in New York. I love you guys. I do feel like it's family vibes on the show. So thank you guys so much for having me. And as always, we should definitely try to collaborate.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say, Easy, you were talking about Launchpad stuff. Did
yeah, but he kind of answered it too, because I was more curious just like how the incubation period, and it seems like it's all through NeoTokyo, the capital side of it, which it made sense. So I mean that got ahead of what I was really looking at, because obviously the comparison to Cetify was where I was interested. But you did mention too, like when it comes to games, I guess my curiosity stems from like, are you investing in any games or looking towards them aside from just infrastructure plays? Obviously you have Imposters, which I'm excited about. I do hold one, so I'm still anxiously waiting to play. So as soon as you got the next play test, let me know.
Yeah, so to answer your question, 100%, I am. I definitely seen quite a few deals. I'm not a professional gaming VC. However, there's certain features that I look for in a project, and in general, valuations, if they're right, I do think that even if the game doesn't end up going to create mass adoption, that it's a good bet, right? And so in the end, it's a crypto project, right? And I know crypto projects. And so I think that people, you have meme tokens sitting at $20-30 billion. Like a lot of people really, really miss some of the key factors of why crypto is an amazing industry. And you can be a very successful investor, even if the projects aren't necessarily, don't end up becoming the next Facebook or the next Fortnite, right? That's ideal, right? But I think that missing the forest through the trees is a real danger here. And what gaming is, undoubtedly is the most logical application of crypto to a consumer project. It is the most logical. It is obviously going to happen. And there's so much mind share, so much investment, and so many talented people pushing towards this, that once that clicks and people see it as possible, that's going to open up the floodgates. And in my opinion, non-gaming projects will definitely have a moment of envy towards that sector. That's my belief. And so there's definitely going to be a rising tide that lifts all ships here. And that's my general thesis. And so I'm taking a lot of bets on teams that I believe in, on projects that I think look cool, even if maybe a Web2 more sophisticated VC like me might not take that bet. I'm very confident that in this world, I know this world, and in a world where we get another Axie moment, which is to me a question of when, not if. And based on my conversations with Robbie at Immutable, like I said, I'm a seed investor there, with Sandeep at Polygon, with a ton of these amazing teams, the gaming team at AVAX, Mark over at Merit Circle, now Beam. Like, there's so much mind share and investment happening here. It's really not a question of if in my mind. It's something that I'm all in on, right? And so I know that, and that's where I've been building. NeoTokyo was meant and is attracting the best minds in the space. What you'll see out of Superverse and out of Imposters is very much so something that I believe people will resonate with on multiple levels. And those plans aren't fully announced yet, so I apologize, or else I'd like to go into more detail. But just know, I pace around the room thinking about the game and the industry and where we are in space and time a lot. And I think about the downsides, the upsides, and every time I do this and I try to externally grade this opportunity with the harshest lens, I end up just as excited and just as bullish.
I mean,
I
it's
did
an
have one more
incredible
question
time.
on it too.
Do it.
It's because we were talking a little bit about the publisher side of things, and obviously Epic Game Store is significantly more open and embracing towards the crypto and NFT side of things. Do you think Steam ultimately will come around to it, or do you think that they're going to continue to push back on it? Because that's been really like the biggest battle. Is you've seen, and I consume a ton of content, especially on the YouTube side of things. People will do full YouTube videos of all the quote awful crypto games on Epic, but it just makes me think of like all the terrible games in general that are still on Steam. And I guess I'm more curious, like, do you think Steam will end up eventually opening up their arms to that side of things? We've seen Apple change their pace on it with the App Store. Obviously, the Google Play Store is embracing it in open arms now. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on it, especially from the publisher side.
Yeah, I'd put any amount of money that it's going to happen, right? And so Steam is very aware of why they're slowing down the pace and what they're doing, and there might be a regulatory aspect as well that they were shying away from. We can't forget about that, right? This is not a clear rules of the road. There's not clear rules to effectively operate in this industry. That is going to change, and over time, all of the reasons why not will change. But eventually, the biggest change will be the player demand, because once players understand that this is a net positive, the first time that studios have actually had a revenue model update that benefits players, it's going to be an absolute insane change in what I think of as the most important new culture online, which is gaming culture, right? And so this is a huge opportunity, and eventually you have the push from the developers, you have the innovators that are going to try to push things forward, and then you have the innovators dilemma at the top, where everything's going great for these big studios. They don't need to rock the boat. But if you didn't think it was going to go forward, why would the Roblox CEO be talking about NFTs? Why is Ubisoft announcing Web3 experiences with Immutable? Why are we seeing all of these studios, take steps in this direction? The answer is that they know that this is huge. They also see the potential of opening the system. When you have an open system, it can be worth more than a closed system. My rough blood demon math is, you get 10 to 100x value creation when you open a system up to market forces. And so seeing a $100 or $200 billion industry roughly make it to a $1 to $10 trillion industry is where I see this in the next 10 years.
If you know anything about Bitcoin, then open networks are better than closed networks, ladies and gentlemen. Just throwing it out there. Love to hear it, Elliot. Sorry, Easy. Go ahead.
No, yeah, it was just on top of that too. It's good to hear too. I mean, we did just get the news Parallel is going to be on Steam. And I like the fact that you discussed, like, as soon as the creators and the users and the players can start to capitalize on some of that revenue, Fortnite's obvious island creation, they've just announced a 9-figure fund for that. So it's starting to happen. Maybe it's not fully NFTs, but the creator economy is certainly starting to gear up. And I think a lot of this too is like a model of play and own versus play to earn is going to start to shift as well, where people own these assets. And that's like the bigger kind of mantra, where I think that's what's going to turn the gaming culture around slightly, as you see creators and true players actually just start enjoying the game. And I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're getting much closer. So it's awesome to hear just your confidence in Steam, because that's like obviously the biggest kind of elephant in the room here, with them pushing back still heavily on it. I think the Apple news was massive to see them open arms to it, but yeah, it's going to be a crazy time, and I'm in the same boat. I'm all in on the gaming side of things, and it just seems inevitable at this point.
Yeah, and I want to say again, thank you guys so much for having me. I do have to run right now, but obviously everyone asks me 24/7 for alpha. The alpha's always been in my bio, baby. I love you guys, and I'll see you very soon.
Love you too, Elliot. Thanks for joining the show, man. Everyone, check out EllioTrades YouTube channel. Check out NeoTokyo, all the different things that Elliot is involved with. Really, really cool to see him seize the day here as gaming starts to kick off. Tony from Shrapnel has his hand raised. I don't know if you want to weigh in before we wrap. Tony.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I think that everything that was just said was spot on, and I think Elliot, you're super smart. But what I would say is on the Steam side, they've been aggressive about very controversial things almost since their inception, right? Like if you remember way back in the day, Steam exists because they came out with Half-Life 2 and said the only way to play this thing that everyone wants to play is on our DRM. And at the time, DRM was like a fucking 4-letter word in the video game space, and everyone hated it. And then they completely changed the narrative to buying video games is Pokemon, and DRM is actually your Pokedex, and like all of these games are just a collector's item for you. And then they were really on the forefront of pioneering free-to-play games as a broad-scaled thing with their payment systems and their Steamworks tools. And so I totally agree that like they're smart, they're calculated, they print money, and so like Disney is slow to enter things, but when they do it really big. I think Steam's going to be the exact same way. They're going to be a huge mover in the space.
Hell yeah, and I think we lost. Okay, he's back. But anyway, love to hear from Tony. What a surprise! Somebody that's over there working on running the show at one of the most highly anticipated crypto games knows what's going up with the history of gaming. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed the show. We do the show Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern time, each and every week. It's available right here on X platform, Twitter Spaces, also available on YouTube and X platform video. If you want to see the show rather than just listen to it, it's also available on Apple and Spotify podcasts if that's how you want to consume the content. Again, check out EllioTrades YouTube channel. Check out NeoTokyo. Check out everything that he has going on. You see the Twitter account on stage, Imposters, so many more, Superverse, so many products and businesses that he's running. Elliot, thanks again, man. Thanks so much for coming. He's
sorry, that's on me. I couldn't. I exited full screen, so I couldn't see it. No, thanks you guys so much. Like I said, it's family vibes. I appreciate you guys having me on. I love what you guys do, and very excited to come and hang out again.
Our pleasure, man. And one last shout out to Shrapnel, partner for the show. We're giving away 2 Shrapnel operators worth 0.16 ETH each. That's ending in 2 hours. So if you own an extraction pack from Shrapnel, comment a screenshot in the pinned tweet on X. If you haven't bought one yet, go to the nifty.com/Shrapnel, enter the promo code NIFTY, NIFTY, for a 30% discount. A lot of action coming on the Shrapnel front. We love to hear it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's our last show of the week. We'll be back on